One.
Hello and welcome to lesson number 9. This video is going to talk about the feminist movement. So our agenda for the video, we'll get a good definition of what feminism means. Then we will talk about women's liberation and the goals of that movement. And we'll finish up talking about some key issues related to women, including the wage gap, Title IX, Roe versus Wade, and the Equal Rights Amendment. So we'll start here. I have borrowed from Beyonce's song Flawless, where she has a bit of spoken word poetry, which is performed by the woman on the screen here. Her name is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And she, in the song, talks about how girls are trained to make themselves smaller, to shrink themselves, to fit into society. And so she ends that bit of spoken word with the definition of feminist, and her definition is the one that I'll use here. And so that's a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. And so feminism is the goal to make women equal to men in our politics, in our society, and in the paycheck. And so women's liberation is the name of the movement for women's rights during the 60s and 70s. One of the leaders of this movement is pictured here. Her name is Betty Friedan. She wrote this book, The Feminist Mystique. She's a women's rights activist, and she started to challenge the traditional role that we have of women as housewives and child caretakers. In the past, in the 50s and earlier, women's role in society was thought to be in the house and to be taking care of the children. She started to challenge that. She created this group called NOW, which stands for the National Organization of Women. And this is a group that promotes women's rights issues even still today. So some of the issues affecting women include the wage gap. So women earn less money than men. That is just true. Even when you compare the same job, women get paid less than their male counterparts. You can see from this image here on the left, even today, this is a recent comparison. For every dollar a white man earns, you see women. Here are white women, Black women, Native American women, and Hispanic women make less money than the white man earns. So in general, you can see it decreases every time. Asian women make less than Asian men. Black women make less than Black men, and so forth. It's a pattern that we see in our society. So something that changed in the 60s to try to make this more equal, and again, we still got a ways to go, but the Equal Pay Act was passed, and this was the law requiring companies to pay women the same money as men for the same work. So that means, like for me, Equal Pay Act means when I apply for a job here at Manor, a teacher who has my same exact year experience, whether that teacher is male or female, they get the same pay. They are not allowed to pay a male teacher more than me if we have the same experience and job duties. So another issue affecting women, we have some educational issues. So discrimination is still a thing going on in the 60s and 70s. And so women had less access to college and to things that were traditionally male activities, such as sports. In the 50s and 60s, if you were female and you wanted to play sports in high school, good luck. That was not really an option to you. Now we have something called Title IX. And Title IX prohibits sexual discrimination in schools that receive federal funding. So almost every school, unless you're a charter, gets federal funding. So this meant that for 98% of schools in the United States, it was illegal to discriminate against students based on sex. And this expanded opportunities for women, gave them the same opportunities that boys had in schools. And so I show you this picture. This is the U.S. women's national team. The women's national team is the top female team in the world. They have been for years. They won multiple World Cups. They're only possible because of things like Title IX that made it possible for women and girls to play sports in school. Before Title IX, this would not be possible. I want to show you a quick clip. This is Jon Stewart, one of my favorite characters. If I could have lunch or dinner with anybody in the world, I think it might be this guy. He does a great job talking about the benefits of Title IX, so I'll let him do that.
They don't see the connection between government action and moving forward. Here's an example. At the Republican convention, there was a woman up there who had won 4 gold medals in shooting. A wonderful, exciting American story. And when she was on stage at the Republican convention, she talked about how the women at the Olympics crushed it, did great, won more medals than women at the Olympics had ever won in the history of the Olympics. The U.S. women would have finished 9th if they were a country. And they celebrated that at the Republican convention, rightfully so, on We Built It night, the night where they all came out and talked about how they didn't need anything, they were the ones that did it. What they never talked about, and the connection they never drew, was in 1972, the government instituted Title IX. Title IX took that money by force and through fairness, and they took that money and they made it distributed more equitably through the schools. It was an enormous controversy, and it paid off at the Republican National Convention with a woman talking about gold medals. There is a connection when the government invests in infrastructure and its people and the success of this country.
Let's move on. So Jon Stewart does a great job there bringing some connections. Our government creates Title IX. It takes that money from the school districts. It says, hey, if you're going to have a boys soccer team, you have a girls soccer team as well. And we see that paying off today. Another issue affecting women that we should discuss is the access to an abortion. Because in the 50s and earlier, if a woman wanted to access an abortion, it depended on the laws of the states that she lived in. Many states made it illegal for women to have an abortion, ending her pregnancy. So what changed was a court case called Roe versus Wade. And this has become very controversial today. We hear talks of wanting to get rid of Roe versus Wade, and you have people from both sides very passionate about the issue of abortion. And so when Roe versus Wade passes, though, it did protect that woman's right to access the abortion. It made it the woman's decision and something that the government could not interfere in. I want to finish up with the Equal Rights Amendment. This is an amendment that has not yet been passed. This never passed through Congress. They've tried a couple of times, but it's never gone through. So it was a proposed amendment that would guarantee that rights for any person could not be denied on the basis of sex. Doesn't sound like it's that controversial, but it's still something that has never been supported enough to pass as an amendment. So it was discussed in the 60s and 70s. It's being discussed today, but no movement on it yet. All right, guys, that's it for me. Got one more video left. Thanks for listening.